In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, a single act of vengeance spiraled into chaos when a homeowner, pushed to her limits by a nosy HOA president, unleashed an army of spiders into her rival's pristine home, igniting a war that would tear their community apart. Welcome to another wild HOA drama on Neighborhood Nightmares. If you love stories of petty revenge, meddling Karens, and suburban showdowns, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss a single crazy tale from the cul-de-sacs of chaos. The sun hung low over Willow Creek, casting golden rays across manicured lawns and picket fences that lined the streets like soldiers standing at attention. In this idyllic neighborhood where every blade of grass seemed measured for perfection, lived Emily Harper, a single woman in her late 30s who had poured her heart into her modest two-story home. Emily was no ordinary homeowner. Her pride and joy was her backyard garden, a vibrant tapestry of roses, lavender, and exotic blooms that drew butterflies and hummingbirds from miles around. She spent every spare moment tending to her plants, her hands calloused from digging in the soil, her mind at peace among the petals. But peace was a fragile thing in Willow Creek, where the HOA ruled with an iron fist, and its president, Linda Grayson, was the self-appointed queen of conformity. Linda, a woman in her early 50s with a penchant for pastel cardigans and a permanent scowl, had made it her mission to enforce every rule in the HOA handbook with ruthless precision. From the exact shade of beige allowed on exterior walls to the precise height of hedges, nothing escaped her scrutiny. Her daily patrols through the neighborhood, clipboard in hand, were the stuff of legend, and her sharp knocks on doors were enough to make even the boldest resident quiver. Emily, however, had managed to stay under Linda's radar for years, her garden tucked behind a high wooden fence that shielded it from prying eyes. But that all changed one sweltering summer afternoon when Linda's gaze fell upon Emily's sanctuary. It began innocently enough. Linda, on one of her patrols, noticed a single rogue sunflower peeking over Emily's fence, its bright yellow head defying the HOA's strict guidelines on non-approved flora. To Linda, that sunflower was a personal affront, a symbol of rebellion in her carefully curated kingdom. She marched to Emily's door, her heels clicking on the pavement like a metronome of doom, and left a notice citing a violation of Section 3.2 of the HOA bylaws. All landscaping must conform to approved plant species. Emily, reading the notice later that evening, felt her stomach twist. Her garden wasn't just plants, it was her therapy, her escape from a stressful job and a lonely life. She tried to reason with herself. Maybe she could trim the sunflower, make peace. But something about Linda's smug handwriting on the notice sparked a flicker of defiance. The next morning, Emily woke to find her garden in ruins. The roses she'd nurtured for years were hacked to stubs, their crimson petals scattered like confetti across the soil. The lavender was uprooted, the delicate stalks snapped in half. Worst of all, her prized Japanese maple, a gift from her late mother, had been doused with herbicide, its leaves curling and blackening in the morning sun. Emily stood frozen, her breath catching in her throat as she surveyed the devastation. A note pinned to the fence confirmed her worst fears. Non-compliant vegetation removed per HOA regulations. L. Grayson. Tears stung Emily's eyes, but beneath the grief, a slow-burning rage began to simmer. Linda had crossed a line, and Emily wasn't going to let it slide. Over the next few days, Emily pieced together what had happened. Linda, armed with her HOA authority, had hired a landscaping crew to correct Emily's garden in the dead of night, claiming it was for the good of the neighborhood's aesthetic. Neighbors whispered about the incident, some sympathetic, others too afraid of Linda's wrath to speak up. Emily's attempts to appeal to the HOA board were met with cold dismissals. Linda's influence was absolute, and the board was filled with her loyalists. As Emily knelt in the dirt trying to salvage what little remained of her garden, an idea took root. Not a flower, but a plan. If Linda wanted a war, Emily would give her one, but it wouldn't be fought with petitions or complaints. It would be something far more unsettling. Emily had always been fascinated by insects, a hobby she kept secret from the judgmental eyes of Willow Creek. In her garage, she maintained a small collection of terrariums housing various creepy crawlies, including a thriving colony of orb-weaver spiders. These harmless but terrifying creatures with their bulbous bodies and long, spindly legs were her quiet obsession. As she stared at the ruined remnants of her garden, an idea struck her. A way to hit Linda where it hurt most. Her pristine, sterile home. Linda was notorious for her fear of bugs, a fact she'd let slip during a heated HOA meeting about pest control. Emily's lips curled into a grim smile. If Linda thought she could destroy Emily's sanctuary and walk away unscathed, she was about to learn a lesson in karma. Under the cover of night, Emily set her plan in motion. She gathered dozens of orb weavers from her terrariums, carefully placing them in a ventilated container. Dressed in dark clothing, she crept through the shadows to Linda's house, a sprawling McMansion with perfectly trimmed hedges and not a speck of dirt out of place. The back door was her target, left unlocked as Linda often boasted about the neighborhood's safety. Emily slipped inside, her heart pounding, and released the spiders into the pristine living room. They skittered across the white carpet, disappearing into crevices and under furniture. Emily didn't linger. She was back in her own home within minutes, her pulse racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. As she lay in bed that night, she imagined Linda's screams come morning, and for the first time since her garden's destruction, she slept soundly. The next morning, Willow Creek buzzed with a new kind of chaos. Linda's shrieks echoed through the neighborhood as she discovered the spiders weaving webs across her chandelier, scuttling over her marble countertops, and nesting in her silk curtains. Neighbors gathered outside, drawn by the commotion, as Linda stormed out of her house waving a broom like a madwoman. She called an emergency HOA meeting that evening, her face flushed with panic as she demanded a neighborhood-wide pest control sweep. But the damage was done. Her perfect home was now a battleground, and the spiders were winning. Emily watched from her porch, sipping coffee, her expression neutral but her heart singing. This was only the beginning, she thought. Linda had declared war, but Emily was ready to escalate. The fallout from the spider invasion was immediate and spectacular. Linda, humiliated by the incident, doubled down on her HOA enforcement, convinced that someone in the neighborhood was out to sabotage her. Her patrols became more aggressive, her notices more frequent. She installed security cameras around her property, vowing to catch the culprit. But Emily was careful, leaving no trace of her nighttime escapade. She played the part of the grieving gardener, attending HOA meetings with a downtrodden expression, all while plotting her next move. Linda's obsession with control was her weakness, and Emily intended to exploit it. The neighborhood, already tense from Linda's reign, began to fracture under the strain, with whispers of rebellion growing louder. Emily wasn't alone in her resentment, but she was the only one bold enough to act. While Linda fixated on her spider problem, Emily turned her attention to the HOA's annual garden showcase, an event Linda treated as her personal coronation. Every year, Linda's yard, with its sterile rows of approved plants, took first place, a victory she lorded over the neighborhood. Emily saw an opportunity to strike again. She spent weeks researching invasive but legal plants, ones that would thrive in Linda's meticulously curated lawn and drive her to madness. Kudzu, a fast-growing vine known for smothering everything in its path, was her weapon of choice. Under the guise of a midnight gardening experiment, Emily scattered kudzu seeds across Linda's front yard, careful to avoid the new cameras. She mixed them with native grass seeds to disguise her work, knowing the kudzu would take weeks to reveal itself. As she retreated to her home, she felt a surge of satisfaction. Linda's reign was about to face a green invasion. Weeks passed, and the kudzu began its silent conquest. At first, Linda didn't notice the tiny sprouts blending with her grass, but by the time the garden showcase approached, her lawn was a tangled mess of vines. The once pristine yard looked like a jungle, the kudzu climbing up her mailbox, wrapping around her decorative fountain, and choking her prized azaleas. The neighborhood gasped at the sight, and Linda's humiliation was complete when her yard was disqualified from the showcase. She tore through the vines with a weed whacker, her face red with fury, but the damage to her reputation was irreparable. Neighbors began to question her leadership, and cracks formed in her iron grip on the HOA. Emily, meanwhile, kept her head down, her own garden slowly recovering with new plantings. But she wasn't done yet. Linda's downfall was in motion, and Emily was ready to push it further. The kudzu incident marked a turning point in Willow Creek. Linda's authority began to crumble as neighbors, emboldened by her public failure, started ignoring her notices. Fences were painted unapproved colors, lawns grew a little wilder, and murmurs of a vote to replace her as HOA president gained traction. Linda, sensing her power slipping, became erratic, her patrols now bordering on obsessive. She hired a private investigator to find the saboteur, but the trail led nowhere. Emily had been too careful. Still, the pressure was mounting, and Emily knew it was time for her final move. She'd heard rumors of Linda's secret, a hidden shed in her backyard where she stored confiscated items from neighbors, from lawn gnomes to unapproved birdhouses. If Emily could expose this, it would be the end of Linda's reign. Late one night, Emily crept back to Linda's property, this time armed with a small flashlight and a camera. The shed was tucked behind a row of arborvitae, its padlock no match for the bolt cutters Emily had borrowed from a sympathetic neighbor. Inside, she found a treasure trove of confiscated goods: garden decorations, children's toys, even a small statue of a frog that belonged to old Mrs. Jenkins down the street. Emily snapped photos, her hands shaking with adrenaline. She uploaded the images anonymously to the neighborhood's online forum, along with a scathing post titled "The HOA Queen's Secret Stash." By morning, the forum was ablaze with outrage, and Linda's doorbell rang with angry neighbors demanding answers. Emily watched from her window as the crowd grew, a small smile playing on her lips. The war was nearly won. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The HOA board, under pressure from the neighborhood, called an emergency meeting and voted Linda out as president. Her shed was emptied. The confiscated items returned to their rightful owners. Linda, humiliated and ostracized, put her house up for sale, unable to withstand the glares and whispers of Willow Creek. Emily's garden began to flourish again, her roses blooming brighter than ever. The neighborhood, freed from Linda's tyranny, felt lighter, with new leadership promising a more relaxed approach to the HOA. Emily never revealed her role in Linda's downfall, but she carried the victory quietly, her spiders and kudzu her silent allies. As she tended her garden, she felt a sense of peace, knowing she'd fought for her sanctuary and won. But in Willow Creek, where new dramas always lurked, peace was never guaranteed. That's it for this wild tale of revenge and spiders. If you enjoyed this HOA showdown, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more neighborhood nightmares, and drop a comment with your own crazy HOA stories. We might feature them next. Until then, stay safe in the suburbs and watch out for those Karens.